We are talking to Lori Brown, PhD, who is the Director of Research of the American Camp Association. Lori, we've been talking now about traditional camps, right? But a lot of camps are going virtual. What I've been trying to research it, I've been having a hard time sort of wrapping my head around it because it seems like the wild, wild west. And there's a lot of things that are popping up that seem to be like, oh, well, there's an opportunity to cash in, so let's have a virtual camp. But there are other people who are pivoting to virtual camps. So I'm just turning to you because you're such an expert. What should we be looking for in virtual camps that are going to create the value of the traditional camp experience, if that's such a thing these days?
Sure, that's a really good question. And first to acknowledge that virtual camps aren't new. We've been seeing virtual camps growing for a while, and I don't have good numbers on this, but there's definitely a niche and a need for virtual type camps, and there's something that virtual camps can do really well in specific areas. I'm talking more STEM related activities lend themselves to a virtual type platform. In response to COVID-19, yes, a lot of camps are pivoting towards virtual, and I wish I could give you some data on how many and what they're doing, but we are scanning the environment right now, and what we see are really kind of two categories of virtual type programming. So in terms of things that parents should be asking for would be, what does your child need?
So what are the two pathways that people can explore for virtual camps?
Sure. So broadly, one pathway is related to skill building. So that's, my kid wants to learn something new. And there are tons of opportunities. One great example I can provide, and there are lots out there, but a great example is through 4-H. They have a 4-H at home platform. And if you just go on the 4-H website, unbelievable skill building type activities. And mostly the types of activities where the child would gather some instructions through a virtual environment and then go and do something and then come back and share about it or something like that. And they range in terms of the amount of supplies, the amount of parent engagement, that kind of thing. But that skill building area is kind of one general platform. The other is connection. And I want to acknowledge that they're not necessarily mutually exclusive. There's certainly opportunity to do both. But we're seeing a lot of, I would say, real traditional camp experiences that have a very tight-knit community and close relationships with campers and families. They're turning to virtual platforms to maintain those close connections with their community and to keep their community engaged. So more informal meetups and ways for campers. We've even seen, e-cabins with wow. Staff trained to have a cabin online, very small groups of kids, and honestly, some pretty rich, opportunities. We can connect online. So I think that's a real promising approach.
I love that idea. That's innovative. The e-cabin, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then that way they could actually bond with that smaller group of people. Because exactly. I do think that that there's, if you get it too big, if the groups are too big, then maybe you lose that opportunity. I know if I'm doing a Zoom classroom, when I was I'm a professor, so I broke my classroom into smaller units because I felt with 25 kids, it was challenging to maintain that quality of interaction. But if I broke it into smaller groups of 6, we could actually get more work done or, create a better experience. So are you finding anything with numbers?
I wish I could give you an exact number, but I would say we know this from in-person experiences that smaller groups allow for more meaningful, sustained interactions between peers and between campers and camp staff. So small groups are what we consider a key mechanism at camp in general. So of course that translates to online. The other thing I'll say here, and this is actually an observation in my own child, but something that parents keep in mind, is just because your child might be really comfortable in social groups, maybe they are really social and gregarious, maybe they're really comfortable on screens in general, doesn't mean that they're necessarily comfortable in a Zoom environment. Right? So you need to kind of, and I saw this as my kids were doing online school, where their teachers would ask them to do something really simple, like share something about your day. And my children were like, no, that's terrifying, right? So I think we need to kind of go back to the drawing board and acknowledge that virtual spaces are just different than in-person spaces. And our kids need to know what their comfort zone is And we need to be really mindful of that and honor that they might not be comfortable in a virtual space. So again, coming back to small groups, I think that that's a really important feature.
Yeah, I have to admit, I think my son is zoomed out. This idea, we talked about some virtual camp ideas, and he was just don't put me in front of another Zoom at all. But I do think that it sounds to me that there's value in, is there a time of day? Like, I don't think we want to put our kids in front of a screen all day. So are there guidelines you're giving as far as amounts of time that people can spend in virtual camps, or is it, what are you finding?
It varies again. And in this, what we're seeing is that camps are designing virtual experiences that are appropriate and relevant to the community that they serve. Some camps have a much more kind of embedded relationship with their campers. And so we do see some camps providing multi-hour type experiences. I would say that none of those require a child to be sitting in front of a screen for multiple hours. They're kind of let's touch base, and then you go out and you do something, then you come back and share about that. So I think folks are mindful of the zoomed out phenomenon. What we're really focusing on is quality in online programming. Just like that's our mission in in-person programming. What does quality look online? And luckily, we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. There's a lot of resources, and I'm sure as a plugged-in parent, you've been promoting, online safety. How parents can keep their children safe online, and camps are designing virtual experiences with that safety component online. For example, requiring sign-ins or requiring parents to engage in an orientation beforehand, so parents know what to expect from their end. Disabling, say, a chat box so that the dialogue stays right there on the screen, and there isn't the opportunity for bullying or anything like that. So, quality, so that's the safety component, which is the foundation of quality, but also how do we make sure that campers feel valued, they feel like they belong, they have an opportunity for decision-making and input into their experience, right? And so that's really where our focus is. And quality is a great kind of framework, because then it allows every camp to design experiences that are meaningful for their community with this quality piece in mind.
So I do think that the American Camp Association accrediting camps, that we make sure that then they have your values, right? That they actually are creating and committed to the camper experience in the way that you would have them and have for 100 years. Right. So if I go to the site, do I find a list of accredited virtual camps, and is the accreditation process different for you than a regular camp?
Yeah, well, and to be clear, our accreditation program is for traditional in-person camps. And so the virtual environment is new to us. And so we're exploring what health and safety looks like online, what quality looks like online. So we've developed a ton of resources to support that. But just because a camp offers an in-person, accredited program doesn't necessarily mean that their virtual camp is accredited. But we do have lots of resources online to help parents kind of determine and ask questions. One is that we do have a virtual camp listing resource that, again, I'm happy to share with you for your website. And then we have some resources we put out for camps, but this would really help parents identify questions to ask around quality in online programming, safety in online programming. We always encourage our camps to reference and parents to become familiar with the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, right? And then also access and equity, as you can see through some of the pieces that I've been thinking about, how to make sure that your child has access to an online experience if they want it.
Right. I love the piece, and I think I will go ahead and link to that article specifically that talked about access for kids in virtual camps. So if I just were to sort of boil it down to some top questions that a parent should be asking regarding virtual camps, one that you gave me was that to know your kid, know sort of, are they going to be project-based, or they are going to get something more out of a community base? Mm-hmm. The other is around safety. How do I make sure that my kid's safe while they're in this online camp? Mm-hmm. And that the camp that I'm selecting actually has a high commitment to high quality and that sort of camper experience. Mm-hmm. Any other things that I should add to this checklist for people?
Yeah, I would encourage parents to ask what the expectation is for parental involvement. Some of these are more hands-off than others. For example, a hangout might not necessarily require a parent to be present. However, the parent still has a responsibility for, again, online safety. A camp can't necessarily control how a camper is coming into the online experience. That's really, within the parent's domain. So it's really important to understand. And parents, who are in need of childcare might not be so happy if they sign up for a virtual camp that has a high degree of parental involvement. Example of this is from school, but I was up in my office working, and all of a sudden I smelled burning. I imagine there are other parents that have dealt with this, and I run downstairs and my daughter said, "We're making crepes." I'm like, "Wow, that's great. Let's not burn the house down." I'm now going to have to be involved with this because crepes are somewhat complicated. But there was no communication in advance that my child was going to be asked to make crepes. And so we are really working with camps to make sure that they understand the parental role and communicate that with parents up front. And so some online experiences will require some parental involvement, others will require less. So that's an important question to ask.
If we're going to build a campfire through our virtual camp, we should probably let mom or dad know.
Exactly. Cooking. I mean, there's a lot of amazing things that kids can be doing virtually, but sometimes parents might need to be involved.
Well, I really appreciate your time and your valuable research and being a resource to both camps as they're navigating this area and for parents. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think is important for the audience to know about either virtual camps or physical camps this summer as we reinvent summer?
Yeah, I would say talk about, our landscape shifting every single day. If you had asked me this a week ago, I probably wouldn't have had this additional piece I'd like to share. But in terms of reinventing summer, we're also seeing camps offering some really interesting opportunities in terms of family camping or camp as a resort. So I know for myself and my family, our travel plans have all gone up in flames for the summer, but now we're thinking, wow, could we go to a camp for a summer? And then you or for a week or so, then you literally have a family unit, and camps are figuring out ways to create distance between other family units. And could we experience camp together? So that's an option too. And we're seeing a lot of real creativity on camp's front to offer family camp experiences.
I think that's a brilliant idea. I love that idea.
Yeah.
We're doing that on our own, but we are not doing it with a camp. But I think a camp would just be structurally so convenient to have the bathrooms or the camp, the lake, the whatever those things are that camps offer.
Well, for working parents, you show up. And maybe I get to experience camp too. That sounds pretty fun right now.
Now you've given me an idea that's so exciting. I just think I want to sort of, maybe I'm going to reinvent my own summer.
Well, there you go.
We've been talking with Lori Brown, who is the Director of Research at the American Camp Association. She's a really big deal, and the organization is huge. It was just involved with the White House in sort of looking at the value of summer camp and sort of how we navigate that in the COVID-19 environment. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for plugging us into summer camp. And if you want to keep plugged in to everything that your kids are plugged into, just go ahead and subscribe to the newsletter at the link below. Lori, thank you, and happy camping.
Yeah, thanks, Brad, and good luck reinventing your summer.